This lecture is on the circulatory system. And the main function of the circulatory system is really to move blood throughout the body. But if we break that down a little bit more, it's really to receive blood from the body that is deoxygenated. So it is carbon dioxide rich because cellular respiration occurred and the cells give off the metabolic waste carbon dioxide. And then its job is also to send this blood to the lungs to exchange that carbon dioxide for oxygen, and then to pump that newly oxygenated blood or oxygen-rich blood around the body so that all the cells have the oxygen they need to perform cellular respiration. The structures involved in the circulatory system include the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood. If we look at the heart, as this lecture will, and the other lectures will focus on the blood and the blood vessels, we can see that the heart is about the size of your fist, located in the upper left portion of your chest. And you can see from this outer structure here that it comes to a point which is called the apex, and we have some very large arteries and veins that are coming out of it. The heart is also surrounded by um, coronary arteries, and remember, arteries are going to bring nutrient-rich blood to the cells of tissues so that they can exchange the waste products for those nutrients to function properly. And the heart is a muscle. It's a cardiac muscle. And that because it's muscle, it also needs those nutrients to function. So the arteries around the heart are going to supply the muscle tissue with the nutrients that it needs in order to perform its function. If we were to cut the heart in half, we would see these chambers inside, and the chambers are separated by a very thick muscular wall called the septum. And you can see all of this around here is all thick cardiac muscle. And when we're looking at the heart, this is always the right side of the heart, and we refer to this side as the left. Now we can look at these actual individual structures of the heart, and if we're looking at the interior of the heart, but first we need to figure out how blood gets there. And these are through veins, because veins are going to return blood to the heart, and we call them the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. The superior vena cava receives blood from the upper portion of the body, and the inferior vena cava receives blood from the lower portion, everything below the heart. The blood comes to the right atrium from there. And this is the right atrium, and there are two atria. They are the top chambers of the heart. They receive the blood. So the right atrium is going to receive the blood from the body, and it's going to move into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, it's going to go through the pulmonary artery, and pulmonary is going to refer to the lungs. So the blood here is going to go to the lungs, and this artery actually carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and then it's going to go to the lungs, pick up oxygen, drop off that carbon dioxide, and return to the heart through the pulmonary vein, and return to the left atrium, and then move into the left ventricle, and then eventually and the blood is going to come back through from the left ventricle. It's going to move up through the aorta. And this aorta is the largest artery in the body. You can see how big it is. And if you look at this left ventricle, it has much more thickness to it. It's very thick. And it's that thick because the left ventricle is going to be responsible for pumping the blood through the aorta to the rest of the body. So it really needs to squeeze. And every time you feel your pulse, so if you put your hand under the base of your chin and feel your pulse or on your wrist, every time you feel that kind of pulsating motion or that surge, you're actually feeling when the ventricle, the left ventricle, is squeezing, and it's squeezing the blood through those arteries. And that's, you're feeling that push through the muscular wall of the artery. If we take a look at this animation, we can see, how the blood is going to flow through the heart. Here we have blood entering the inferior vena cava, and then up top is the superior vena cava, and it's going to enter the right atrium. Now we're going to talk about the different valves, and the valves are going to prevent the backflow of blood, and they're going to move into the blood is then going to move into the right ventricle and be pushed through a valve into the pulmonary artery. It's going to go to the lungs, and then it's going to return from the lungs through the pulmonary vein, enter the left atria through a valve to the left ventricle, and through the aorta to the rest of the body. You can see that these muscles are really pumping. Now, um, if we're looking here, you can see this chart is showing you blood pressure, and this is what you would see on an electrocardiogram. Now, diastole is going to be the rapid ventricular filling. So when the ventricles are actually filling up, it's called dystole or diastole. And the systole or systole, depending on how you pronounce it, is when the atria are actually filling up and the ventricles squeeze. So as we're pushing the blood from the ventricle into either the pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, um, we're undergoing systole, and then when the ventricles fill up, it's the diastole. Take a minute and watch that. Now, I mentioned the valves, and their job is to prevent the backflow of blood. We don't want it to go backwards. We always want to keep it forward. And there's a valve, which is called a tricuspid, because it has 3 flaps in between the right atrium and the right ventricle. And then the mitral valve is between the left atrium and left ventricle. There's an aortic valve, okay, from the left ventricle into the aorta, and the pulmonary or semilunar valve, which is the valve actually going to the pulmonary artery from the right ventricle. If we take a look here, we can see the different types of circulation. There's 2 types of circulation we talk about, and one is pulmonary circulation, and that pulmonary refers to the lungs, and that's when blood is going to be pumped from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart. And then the other part is systemic circulation, which is going to be the heart pumping blood to the rest of the body and then returning to the heart again. So if we follow this, if blood is coming into the superior and inferior vena cava, you can see these 2 big blue vessels here into the right atrium, to the right ventricle, and then it's going out to the lungs through the pulmonary artery. We have this gas exchange occur with capillaries in the alveoli of the lung, and it's going to return as oxygen-rich blood to the left side of the heart. So the left side of the heart is going to be responsible for the systemic circulation, which is going to pump the blood to all the tissues of the body. And then the pulmonary circulation is more of the right side of the heart, where it's going to receive the blood from the body, but it's pumping it to the lungs. There's a lot of disorders that can occur with the heart and circulatory system. We're going to focus on the ones really with the heart right now. Coronary artery disease is actually when cholesterol plaques build up and narrow the arteries in the surrounding the heart muscle. And what happens is when those arteries are narrowing, there's more likely to be a blood clot, and it stops blood flow and nutrition to the heart muscle. Angina pectoris is when there's narrowed coronary arteries that cause chest pain or discomfort anytime the heart is pumping. A myocardial infarction, which is actually known as a heart attack. It's when one of those coronary arteries is suddenly blocked, and because the heart is starved of oxygen because of that blockage, part of the heart muscle dies. So every time there's a heart attack, part of the muscle is actually dying. Congestive heart failure. This is when the heart's either too weak or too stiff to actually pump blood through the body, and there could be shortness of breath and leg swelling as common symptoms of it. And this is actually a problem with the heart itself. Cardiac arrest. We hear that term a lot. It's actually the sudden loss of heart function. So once the heart stops, that's cardiac arrest. And an arrhythmia or dysrhythmia is an abnormal heart rhythm because of changes in the electrical impulses of the heart. There's a sinoatrial node in the heart, which is called the pacemaker. And sinoatrial, you should be thinking of atrium. And that pacemaker receives nervous impulses, and those nervous impulses are what cause the heart muscle to contract and pump that blood. If there's an arrhythmia or something that changes those electrical impulses, keeping the heart beating at a normal rate, it can't catch up. So if a person may go into fibrillation, you see AED devices, and in TV shows you see the paddles that they put on, they give the person electrical shock. Really what that's doing is stopping the heart so that it stops that abnormal pattern and then will
resume its normal rhythm so that it can pump blood around the body.